How is this still going on? This verse been going for way too long. If you're blind, you can see that this is wrong, and I won't comply. Not me, no way.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on. As usual, Justin Trudeau pays tribute to Queen on the day of the Queen's funeral. Last night, actually, at a piano. He was singing. I've got video of that to show you, and it's cringeworthy. It's very, very cringy. End of an era. Today is the British funeral for the Queen. The end of the queue, right? The most British thing ever to have happened. And Queen Elizabeth being laid to rest today. So that's happening. I think it's happening probably right now. I think that I saw a placard saying like this is happening right now. So that's pretty wild. Stephen Harper was given the Order of Canada last night. I guess everybody got together and they thought, let's do this thing. Weird. You cannot shut down a movement. Time to flesh the turd. I just thought that worked together. That might be the title. I'm not sure. Jason Kenney goes to jolly old England as well. And Canada needs a recession. Yes, according to the Globe and Mail. So there's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. First, if you want to support the show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. You can check out the forums. They're free. You can do a one-time subscription or a monthly payment if you're interested. One-time payment or a monthly subscription. There we go. You can sign up for Kitchen Table Talks. I posted the latest one yesterday. It was great. Lots of fun. And I think it's gone on to the rest. I posted it yesterday on my Telegram channel and it's up on everywhere else now. So if you want to join in the conversation, you can just sign up here and you can click here on Amazon if you shop on Amazon and you want to support the show. You can check it out on Locals as well, and you can check out Canada Report if you're interested in supporting the show that way, or if you're interested in checking out the links that I use before I actually build the show. Okay, here is Justin Trudeau, and he's got an audience with Prince Charles, and the Globe and Mail is reporting, unlike the tens of thousands of people joining the 8-kilometer queue along the River Thames, Mr. Trudeau used a special VIP entrance to pay his respects to the Queen. So Justin Trudeau skips the queue, right? Shocking. Shocking. I mean, it's not all that shocking, but it's kind of shocking. And Justin Trudeau then has a party in the hotel lobby, which I guess is pretty par for the course for him. This is super, super cringeworthy. And if, when the Tories did this, I believe it was Prince Philip's funeral, they had to apologize. And I've got that Guardian article for you here. But it seems like everybody was kind of having a party, a joyous occasion, as Trudeau says. But here is a cringeworthy video of our Prime Minister yesterday, the night before the Queen's funeral, singing Queen to some people around a piano. Here we go. Was Melanie Jolie not there to stop him from doing this? Just stop. Please stop. No, don't do the low ones. That's not hitting right. You're not doing that. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. Right? Oof. Canada's back and they brought the choir, right? It's like an episode of Glee. It's just embarrassing. Very cringeworthy. Here is, moments ago, Justin Trudeau spoke about the joyous occasion of the Queen's death. Not joking.
Good to be in London for this important historic...
Sorry, I don't know why it just starts randomly and then begins in the middle of the thing. I'm not sure why it does that. Anyway, regardless, here is Justin Trudeau, and he's talking about the joyous occasion of the Queen's death. And it's very, he says exactly that. Here's the video of him saying that. Here we go.
Bon après-midi tout le monde. It's good to be in London for this important historic occasion, filled with reflections and solemnity, but also remarkable moments of unity and even a sort of joy. It is great to be here with a group of extraordinary Canadians. The delegation is composed of past prime ministers, former governors general, artists, military, people who've served their country in extraordinary ways and represent all of Canada as we gather. Hier, j'étais là pour...
Does nobody read his remarks and say, maybe don't say it's a joyous occasion? I mean, might be not very tasteful. Here's Sophie, and she says, "Simply stunning. Nobody does it as well as the British." This is a procession of the coffin of the for the funeral, I guess. So quickly. It's a bit macabre, right? Don't you think? I don't know. It's a little... But, I mean, they have to pay their respects, and the nation is mourning and all of that other stuff. Jason Kenney flew. Here it is. Payman says, Premier Jason Kenney flew to the United Kingdom on Friday. It's a 9-hour flight on his own dime. Stood in line for 14 hours to get a 3 to 5 second window to pay his respects on Alberta's behalf to Canada's late monarch, and then flew back to Alberta to formally pay respects for His Majesty on Monday. True statement. Respect. That's wild. I mean, that's wild. Here's Jason Kenney. In his 3 seconds, he was there, and he did his thing. Here we go. There he is. Yeah, pretty wild, right? Pretty wild. So it's very interesting. Here's the Guardian article I was talking about earlier. Number 10 apologizes to the Queen over parties on eve of Prince Philip's funeral. Jason Kenney wasn't carrying that lower end for that Queen song there. He wasn't there, right? He was on a red eye back to wherever he needed to be. Pretty wild. Absolutely incredible. This is Canadian politics. And I really think after the Queen is buried, after today, the decorum is done, the pageantry's over, and King Charles takes over in stride type deal. And I think we're going to start seeing more influence maybe, and Canada being held in high regard. Because I read, and I'll even show you, there's a news article talking about there was only one president invited. So you don't want to invite those recent presidents, right? Ooh, Trump might show up. Holy smoke. Right? Pretty wild. Here's Stephen Harper. He says, as we gathered to celebrate Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, I was honored to be invested into the Order of Canada by Governor General of Canada, Mary Simon. Thank you, Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, former fellow Prime Ministers Martin, Chrétien, Campbell, and former Governors General Johnson and Jean for attending the ceremony. So not only did Justin Trudeau do a rousing version of Queen on the eve of the Queen's death, he also bestowed Orders of Canada. Is it the Prime Minister who does that? I'm not sure who makes that decision. He had everybody he needed there to do it, so I guess, hey, let's do it. I just have these in my pocket just in case. Yowza. JJ McCullough says, I don't quite get how the US is only allowed to send one president, but Canada is allowed to send 5 prime ministers and a vast extended cast of other various hangers-on. Yeah, why did we get so prominently displayed in this whole thing? And the WEF King, what does that have to do with it, right? I'm not sure. It seems like there's an interesting story playing out, and we're an integral part of it, I fear. Chris says, moving on to speech and freedom of speech and Twitter. I wrote a book about how my YouTube channel was removed for medical misinformation, which turns out was not actually medical misinformation. Now, with history and data on our side, we can see clearly that people who were concerned about this and were concerned about a lack of data to back up the safe and effective push campaign were right to be skeptical of this. And so that's interesting, don't you think? And so Twitter is responding in real time. Now, YouTube took 3 strikes to get my channel gone, but they were going after my channel. They were going back in time to previous shows because I put out so much content. They're going back in time after they'd given me a strike for show 100. And presumably, if you give somebody a strike, you want to change behavior. They'd go back to show 92 or something like that and give me a strike for the same thing, medical misinformation. Oh, you said that on Monday and you said it last Wednesday. So now you're done. You can't do anything. So I thought that was an interesting feature of the censorship on YouTube, which you can read about it in my book, I guess, if you're interested. But Twitter is trying to respond in real time by removing a hashtag. I think that they're using some kind of anti-terrorism or terrorism tools as the vehicle for this policy. Like they're saying to Twitter, we're the government and this is a terrorist hashtag. I mean, it's clearly not a terrorist hashtag. It's clearly not bots. It's clearly not anything of that order at all. It's nothing like that. But the government is going to tell Twitter anything it needs to know in order for Twitter to censor this hashtag. And so they're censoring the hashtag. And I'll show you examples. And so it's interesting that, I mean, there's dozens of viewers daily. Actually, there's hundreds of viewers daily, thousands, I guess, viewers daily. If you look at all of the places that I put my show, if you add them all up, it's probably close to 3,000 with all of them told. But usually among those 3,000, I have 3,000 likes as well. Everybody who watches the show likes the show, which, you know, is so interesting. It's such a weird thing. On Telegram, yesterday's show had something like 75 views. And there was a comment spammer guy who was in there for a while. But there's lots of comments as well. So it's a very interesting situation to have such managed numbers. And when you see this, I think that when you look at what's happening on Twitter, I think you can see that if they can take a hashtag that 500,000 Canadians are hashtagging and actively participating in, they could take a little show like mine and make it very, very small, very quickly, very easily. So it's one of those things that I look at this and I think, holy smoke, how deep does this censorship go? Right? Like, really, how deep does it go? I think it goes really, really deep. I think we'd be shocked to learn the depth of this. Chris says, Twitter is trying really hard to censor hashtag Trudeau must go, but too many people are tweeting it because Trudeau is a douche nozzle. It may not be appearing in the what's happening list, but it is still the number one on the list, even though they're trying to replace it with hashtag Nazi. Twitter does this, tries to distract you distract you from something else. Mr. Michael says, at 3:44 p.m., Trudeau must go hit over 508,000 tweets. 18 minutes later, Twitter had it at 491,000 tweets. Another 20 minutes later, and it's not showing up on Canadian trends. There you go. You can see pictures of that as it fell off the trending list. So I long speculated that if you start to trend, if you get a tweet that hits hundreds of likes or thousands of likes, you can do that until you hit governor number. And if say it's 500,000 for this one. So this one, the governor number is 500,000. So when it gets to 500,000, now you have to disrupt and remove. So same thing with an influencer. If you are a person who is popular or is trying to get a message out one way or the other that's not against, or that is against the narrative, then as soon as you hit a certain number, and it can change because it's just an algorithm that you can edit, right? So it could be 500,000 today, tomorrow it'll be 300,000, the next day 100,000. So they'll just disrupt it before it gets too big. That's how Joe Rogan couldn't grow today. Alex Jones couldn't grow today. I'm sure of it. And I'm wondering, I see other people grow, and I'm wondering, that's what I mean by the depth of it, because I do see other people grow. How many people are they doing this to? To what extent? Can they allow people to grow a little bit, or can they allow people to grow? Do they have different levels based on seriousness of content or threat assessments or whatever? I have no idea. It feels like the censorship that's on me is different than the censorship that it's on like What's Her Face or Viva Fry or something like that. But maybe I'm just way worse than those people. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, it seems like censorship. It seems like this validates the idea that censorship is playing a really big role in the Canadian media landscape. And it's interesting because I'd really love to understand the mechanism they're using, because they're trying to pass C11 to be more vicious than this. If they pass C11, I don't think I'll be able to do my show, but I don't think Rebel News will be able to do their show either. I don't think True North will be able to do what they do. Like, it'll be approved media and only approved media. So what are you going to do, right? Like, sorry. But the censorship, I really want to understand. Right now, they're trying to pass more laws to give them more control. How much control do they have now? I don't know. There's not a really good way to find out either, because they'll say national security. We can't tell you. Here's Trudeau must go, Alan. And hashtag Trudeau must go has reached over 500,000 tweets, and all of a sudden it disappears from the trending list. What happened? Did Twitter get a call from Justin Trudeau? Where's free speech? Thumbs down to Twitter. You suck big time. Yeah, boo, boo, Twitter, boo. He's responding to Rowan's tweet, who says, Putin strikes again. Trudeau must go. Hashtag surpasses 500,000 tweets. The contempt is real. Yes. So he's saying that Putin, obviously, right? It's obviously Putin's bots, and that's why they're getting rid of it. Here's video real time from Gordon. He says, how about that? The censorship is real. Quick video. This happens for me too. If you haven't seen it, it's he's trying to like Marty's post, and the like goes on and then flips off, and then he tries to retweet it, and it happens, and then it doesn't happen anymore. So I've seen that. I've absolutely experienced that, and interesting. People have said to me they've been unsubscribed from my Rumble channel. People have said that they can't subscribe to my YouTube channel. People have said that no news about the Odyssey channel. I think Odyssey is probably the best one with regards to being published quickly after I upload it. Rumble sometimes takes hours, and I don't understand why. It takes a really long time to turn around, and Bitchute can sometimes take a while to process the video. But Odyssey's up really, really fast. But it always only garners about 200 views, I guess, whereas Rumble gets a lot more, 600 and 700. But I think that it's funny because I used to get like 1,000 views on Rumble, and then they slowly started ticking back, but the likes keep increasing. Like the like ratio and the number of likes, it's so weird. Censorship. It's censorship. Anyways, here's Roman Babber. He says, hold on, Twitter Canada. Trudeau must go exceeds 500,000 and was removed from the trending list. Twitter must decide, are you with the regime, or will your algorithm respect freedom of speech? You too, Meta, Facebook, what are you going to do? They've already bent the knee. They have already sat there and gone in, and they've bent the knee, and they've all had like a big feast together. And I'm pretty sure Mark Zuckerberg's somebody's hand. Like, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that these are not free speech platforms. It has nothing to do with free speech. Absolutely nothing. I heard of a global walk away from mainstream media, like stop giving them any kind of air whatsoever. Don't subscribe to their channels. Don't watch their channels. Don't subscribe to their Twitter or their media or anything like that. Like, go to the source or get alternate news. It's an interesting idea. I'm wondering how I could do my show effectively without news articles. Because sometimes I like to have the news article to bolster what I'm trying to say or to give credence to it. But if I'm using source, then that's good. But then I wouldn't have much to flesh it out. I don't know. I might try. We'll see. We'll see if I can change it up and use just source rather than CBC or CTV or anything like that. Although sometimes that is the story. Sometimes I use it to illustrate how they're misleading people. But regardless, it's an interesting thought process. The idea is that you don't give them any attention. Like Dean Blundell, you shouldn't give that guy any attention. The Great Resist says, you can shut down a hashtag, you can shut down a bank account, but you cannot shut down a movement. And I thought it was a really good, I thought that was a good statement by itself. And then I like how Justin Trudeau is sometimes referred to as the turd and a bowel movement, right? And I thought that worked really well. So that's a little nursing joke for you, for the nurses in the audience today. Viva Fry says, independently confirmed, although it seems that Trudeau has to go, is now inching up. Fascism is big tech and big media working in tandem with big government. Yeah, and they are doing their best to get rid of the Trudeau has got to go or Trudeau must go hashtag. None of that's allowed to trend on Twitter. That's against the narrative. Everybody loves Dear Leader. Dear Leader is the best. Right? Here's Maxime Bernier. He's responding to Gerald Butts, who now says that he knows that Marty's real, you guys. This is Gerald Butts' tweet. He says, I don't doubt Marty is real. I don't doubt that he believes he started this thing, which started in the U.S. days before he thinks he started it. Sadly, he's being used by whom? Yes, in the U.S., obviously, clearly, the hashtag Trudeau must go and the I am a hardworking Canadian who's contributed to society, and Trudeau called me a racist misogynist, which he's done multiple times. That obviously started in the States. Obviously. Gerald Butts knows exactly what he's talking about. That bot farm in the States, obviously, right? Because Justin Trudeau often calls United States people misogynists and racists. Right? Did Biden call them misogynists and racists? I think Biden did a whole, they're the enemy of the United States democracy, but he didn't call them misogynists and racists. I think he called them white supremacists. He called them that kind. He went in that direction. But I think the whole thing is very, very interesting. That Gerald Butts is trying to claim that this exquisitely Canadian hashtag with a very specific Canadian messaging about a specific thing that Justin Trudeau said about an identifiable group. They're trying to say, oh yeah, that totally started in the US. People believe this? Holy cow. Maxime Bernier says, Gerald Butts, the conspiracy theorist, authoritarians are so afraid of spontaneous popular movements that they have to pretend some dark force is behind them. There is a dark force. I think it's Gerald Butts. Ezra Levent is responding. Ian says, Air Canada just bought a fleet of 30 electric planes that can fly 200 kilometers in an all-electric mode. Extremely cool. Yes. There's concerning things about this. Ezra Levent says, 200-kilometer range, you say, in the second largest country in the world? So maybe they could fly Ottawa to Montreal, but they'd better not have to circle the airport more than once or they'll run out of juice. Would you trust those batteries when it's minus 40 out? What's the recharge time? What's the turnaround time on one of these things? Like, does the plane recharge while it's flying and then it lands? And then the charging time, which is question mark, and then you replane and go to the next one? I don't think this is a viable idea. Would you trust those batteries when it's minus 40 out? No. Here is a hybrid human. He says, EV burns down house. Electric vehicle in Washington state sparked a fire at a Virginia home, did $235,000 in damage. I think it's NBC Washington. I think it was Washington state, but it might be DC, because if it's Virginia, they're talking about DC. But regardless, very interesting stuff. Who knows what happens? What happens if while you're flying, one of the batteries or something like that catches fire, and then what do you do then? Right? Like, what happens then? This is your captain speaking. Look outside. Don't worry about the engine fire. These things happen in planes. We'll just use the other engines until this fire gets put out and blah, 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 blah. We'll let it run out of fuel. But the fuel is a battery. Oh no. Right. And at what point, like, don't worry, we'll be fine so long as the frame of the plane remains intact, and so long as you keep a wing and the lift remains intact, right? But if there's a battery burning and continuing to feed a fire and it burns off the wing, and I don't know where the battery is placed, but that doesn't seem like a good place you want to be in a plane, in an electric plane where there's a battery fire, right? I don't know. There's all sorts of problems that seem like they're being glossed over. Like, hey, we don't have any kind of safety data for this thing. Don't worry, take it or lose your job. Oh, okay. These questions used to be valid in a sane world, right? Dan McTeague responds to Germany. Giovanni says, Germany's Scholz chases energy deals on trip to the Middle East. Chancellor will visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar on 2-day visit. High-ranking business delegation will accompany Scholz. And so Dan McTeague says, because they can't get anything from Canada's idiotic prime minister, even though Canada has the world's third largest provable oil and gas reserves and even ranks highest on the world ESG scores. So we can't sell our oil or gas. We could sell hydrogen, I guess, but that's not very helpful. And so they being Germany need energy. And so they being Germany are going to the Middle East for it, because our prime minister can't see an opportunity. An opportunity horse that he doesn't look in the mouth. CTV says, Quebec election, immigration becomes political fodder as parties spar over capacity. Well, capacity is a big deal when you can't afford housing, and people can't afford housing. So capacity is a big deal. CTV News in Montreal says, Quebec election, immigration becomes political fodder as parties spar over capacity. See, this is an example of something that would be difficult to cover with a new paradigm, because I'd have to go find all of the quotes from each person, and they're not always guaranteed on Twitter. Sometimes they do exclusive Facebook things and blah, blah, blah. It's all sorts of, it's a bit of a mess, really. Anyway, regardless, let's read the article. The head of a major employers group in Quebec says an election campaign is not the time to have a serious discussion about immigration. Obviously not. We can't talk about immigration at a time like this. We're trying to elect somebody. Campaign slogans and political messages aren't suited for rational conversations about how newcomers contribute positively to the economy, argues Carl Blackburn, president and CEO of the Council de Patronat de Quebec. We are very much aware that these are sensitive issues, particularly around language, Blackburn said. 3 weeks in, party leaders have not shied away from putting immigration at the front and center of the Quebec campaign. The debate has so far been superficial, focused on numbers. Parties have been accused of one-upping each other with immigration targets and the ambiguous concept of the province's capacity to integrate newcomers. Most notably, Coalition Avenir Quebec, CAQ leadership Francois Legault clumsily tied immigration to violence and extremism. Comments, he then walked back. Though days later, he told a campaign crowd that non-French speaking immigration threatens non-traditional cohesion in the province. During Thursday night's leadership debate, Legault warned that if Quebec doesn't gain more powers, it could end up like Sweden, which is struggling with a crime wave linked to immigration. Now, the other day, I showed you a tweet talking about how Sweden is, I've got to talk about the Finnish-Swedish prime minister because I got that wrong, but showing you how Sweden is faring, and they just kicked out their left socialist party, and the tweet that I saw said that under decades of this far left socialist party, they've created violent ghettos and blah, 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 blah. So here's Dion reporting the same thing. I couldn't find that tweet again, but I was just probably not putting the right things into Twitter, or they just censored it. Who knows? Sweden has finally voted out the loony left socialist government whose reckless immigration policies have all but destroyed this once great country. Yeah, there's been shootings and violence and bombings and all sorts of things that have been afflicting Sweden. It's certainly a rational thing to think that this kind of thing at such a high rate is going to impact places like Quebec, places like Ontario, right? And it's wild that that's seen as a racist dog whistle. It's not. It's sensible. And it absolutely, people expressing concern about that is valid, absolutely valid. If a government has policies that lead to negative outcomes like violence, people should question it. They really should. Here's the BBC News article. I said that the Sweden PM resigned after doing this. I was wrong. The Finland PM, as far as I understand it, is still in place, partying her days away. No, not really. I'm sure she's working hard, and you can party as well, right? You're allowed to do that. Sure. But I just wanted to correct that, so I got that wrong. And thank you for letting me know, people who are letting me know. I've gotten a couple of emails about it, so I appreciate it. And I do like to correct myself. So I really do. Like, if I get something wrong, please do let me know. It's much better to not even eat crow, like just let you know that I got something wrong. Because, man, I'm a human person. I've got other things on my mind too. Sometimes I get things wrong. Sometimes my understanding of things is a little muddled. And I do my best to clarify and come back and let you know, or try and be as clear as I can be about what I think, because I think that that's important. Anyway, regardless, let's move on. We're talking about race. Here is the accusations of white supremacy are pretty broad. And Carmen Syed, I think that's how you say that. She's a lawyer and a political satirist. And she says this CTV news segment quotes 4 white people as anti-hate experts on white supremacy while using my on-the-ground footage without attribution. Erasure is a manifestation of white supremacy. And Devin says Karma refers to Judia Trin and CTV News as engaging in white supremacy for the omission of crediting her video for a video she shot. I'm not a fan of the mainstream media, but this flippant use of the terms white supremacy and racism needs to stop. It's literally harmful to the real fight. Devin continues, white supremacy is now a buzz term that anyone can use for whatever reason. If Judy A. Trin and CTV News are engaged in white supremacy, I'd like someone to let me know what the new definition of white supremacy is. Well, it's anything that you do that liberals disagree with. And it doesn't matter if you're white. If you do something that a liberal disagrees with, you're engaging in white supremacy. That's the rules. I don't make them, man. That's just what's happening. I wish that wasn't happening, but it is happening. And that's the rules. So it's crazy, but we need to push back against it because that seems to be getting entrenched in culture at this point in time. Blacklock's reporter says Feds Passport Canada issues an urgent appeal for crowd control barriers at passport office. Do you think that we're going to be able to get passports in the long term? A year's wait, 2 years wait? How long is a reasonable wait? If they're getting crowd control barriers, how long before they get police officers with crowd control measures, right? Who knows? We're transitioning from a society where the government actually had to deliver service. And into a society where the government uses police to manage an upset population who they gaslight and accuse of doing something wrong to have that result. Like, it's obviously your fault that the passport office is not well managed, and we're going to send this police officer there to make sure that you're not rude to the passport people who are doing their best. And you not understanding that is the problem here. Here's an example in Ontario of of more crime. A huge increase in crime has happened since Justin Trudeau's taken over as well. It's been not widely reported, but shootings in Toronto have doubled, and more probably now than under the Harper years. Overdoses have been a massive problem, but we keep paying for drugs. Doesn't make any sense. Durham Regional Police say, great work by our tactical officers and uniformed officers after stopping an alleged carjacker on the Highway 401 by Salem Road, Ajax. Westbound was shut down for the takedown. Traffic is now moving. One in custody, OPV taking carriage of investigation. So carjackings and road safety, roads being safe from people like that, is something that's not true all over the world. And it's very concerning. Like, how many police officers, there's a lot of police officers showing up for this event. How many police officers do you need for carjacking? And how often is this happening, right? Is this, it's not just carjackings. It's not just pedestrians being run over, all sorts of weaponization of the day-to-day, everyday life. And we're not getting the truth about it either. And it's very, not from the media, not from the police. The police arrested a sitting MP for assault and break and enter and didn't tell anybody about it for a month. That's wild. And that's a Guelph. Unbelievable, right? Lion Advocacy says the anti-hate expert groups quoted in the CTV article below receive funding from the government, the Trudeau government. Trudeau's propaganda is getting increasingly brazen and divisive. It must stop. I hope all Canadians see through this state-sponsored nonsense. I had to actually read this part of the CTV article twice, and I checked the URL as I thought it was a spoof of The Onion or something similar. It says, quote, January 6th changed things in Canada. We're now not so much worried about bombs. We're worried about a mob armed with hockey sticks and fire extinguishers charging at the historical Parliament buildings, Carvin said. Really? Wild. That's a weird thing to worry about. Those fire extinguishers and hockey sticks are a big problem. How many people have been injured by hockey sticks and fire extinguishers? How many mobs have charged the Parliament buildings? Why are you worried about that? All right, let's talk inflation. Peter says he's a gold and silver guy. He says the gold price is not indicating inflation is a problem one bit. The opposite now. It's increasingly indicating that deflation is brewing and the biggest threat at the moment. Rates rising globally as piles of unplayable, unmanageable debts face risks of defaulting. Something is going to break in a very dangerous way soon. Debt is inherently deflationary. Central banks are in a horrible position here, having helped to balloon deflationary debt while now fighting their effects of dangerously expanding the monetary supply for years. There's no easy way out of this trap. It's a catch-22. Fight inflation while growing the odds of triggering a debt implosion. They're trapped. A day of reckoning is coming sooner than later. Violent moves from dovish to hawkish to dovish stances see more bipolar banker behavior. And so here's a couple of examples. The Globe and Mail is reporting Canada may need a recession to cool down inflation, economists say. So they're going to force a recession here. They're going to use the interest rates to force a recession in order to get the inflation under control. I don't know that that's going to work. I'm not a monetary guy. Don't take anything I say for monetary advice because it's not, because I'm not a money guy. Get a money guy though. You should probably know somebody or have an idea of, what you're doing if you're doing stuff with a lot of money. But what's happening seems like it's on purpose. That's my lay interpretation of what seems to be going on here. Here's the Globe and Mail article. The underlying pressure driving inflation in Canada are likely to peak in the fourth quarter of this year, economists told Reuters, though most see signs fast rising prices are becoming entrenched and warn a recession may be needed to avoid a spiral. A spiral. Now, do you remember when they said inflation's transitory, inflation's temporary, inflation's never going to happen, inflation's good for you, actually. Don't worry about inflation, it's great. But they said it was temporary and it was going to peak and peter out in Q3. And we're coming to the end of, are we in Q4 now? September? Yeah, so we're at the end of the year now. So it didn't it cooled. Inflation cooled in Q3, but it looks to be under more pressure now. And there's going to be tax hikes in December. They're going to put even more pressure on Ontarians anyway. And federally, there's a clean fuel tax that goes into, kicks in on December 18th. So more gas taxes equal more inflation. It'll go back up to $2 a liter, right? That's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. But we'll see. And it just seems like instead of doing what's needed to get back on track, and I think what's needed to get back on track is to remove the damaging taxes, the inflationary taxes, stop the quantitative easing, stop the spending, and go back to the suite of policies that we had in 2018 that didn't include COVID lockdowns or COVID measures because they were useless and they didn't do anything anyway. And try and get things back on track as best we can with our old standards. I think that's the best way to do it. But they're not going to do that. They're trying to prep people with words like spiral. Canada's inflation data for August was released on Tuesday, with analysts forecasting the headline rate will edge down to 7.3% from 7.6%. Oh, that interest rate hike is working a treat, right? It was 8.1, now we're 7.3. In July, and a 4-decade high of 8.1 in June. But all eyes will be on the 3 core measures of inflation: CPI common, CPI median, and CPI trim, which taken together are seen as a better indicator of underlying price pressures. The average of these 3 hit a record high of 5.3% in July. 6 of 8 economists surveyed by Reuters see core inflation peaking in the fourth quarter as underlying domestic and global pressures start to ease though back to the 2% target will not be brisk. Yeah, so then it's going to take a long time to get back to 2%. Or do you think we're ever going to get back to 2%? How much does it need to rise? How many months does it need to be at above 6, 8, 9% to say, okay, what we're doing is not addressing inflation adequately, and we need to bring on a new team that knows what they're doing? How much? It's crazy. I've got vaccines. Okay, let's move to food and then we'll finish on vaccines because food is kind of related to inflation a little bit. Here's the food professor. He says, we import a lot of food from abroad during winter to feed ourselves. If the loonie drops even further, it will impact our importers' buying power. So at the store, if everything's priced in US dollars, let's say, because we're buying from the US, trucked over, right? And from Mexico, which they'll have a normalized price in US dollars. And so the wholesaler's pricing in USD, and the Canadian dollar drops from, let's say, 78 to 71. That 6 cents a dollar or whatever is not going to be a huge, huge deal, but it's an indicator of weakness in Canada. It's an indicator. And I mean, I've seen and remember 65-cent dollar. But that was good for tourism, right? And it balanced itself out because of so much more money coming in, et cetera. But with ArriveCan, no tourism. So there's problems. And with regards to food, if the buying power of the dollar is diluted by 10%, let's say 10%, 15%, then your price goes up 10%, right? So not so good, right? Pressures on price. And all the pressure is upward, right? More expensive, more pricey. Hart says, on Wednesday, I reported about this. A woman dropped dead at the Saskatoon Shoppers Drug Mart after her booster. A friend of mine witnessed it. 2 days later, they're refusing to be honest with people about the potential harms. So at the end of this, she says, we're not commenting on that situation. The woman in this video asks a great question. Like, shouldn't people be informed? Shouldn't you tell people about that? I'm going to just fast forward it to kind of the end part here.
Yeah.
Why? Like, if I want to get a shot, shouldn't I know these things first?
We're not commenting on that.
Okay, well, I just want to give it the full context.
That kind of thing.
Okay. I heard that somebody died here 2 days ago.
No, we're not
right after
commenting on that. Yeah.
Why? Like, if I want to get a shot, shouldn't I know these things first?
We're not commenting on that. That's what my manager told us. So.
But when you have to get a medicine, don't you have to let people know the dangers of it?
That's a privacy issue. I'm not allowed to inform you.
Okay. Let's just do a quick thought experiment. Let's just think about this in another way. Let's not talk about vaccines because they're very lots of people get upset about that kind of stuff. Let's say Taco Bell. Let's just talk about Taco Bell. If you were at a Taco Bell and somebody bought a taco, this product that Taco Bell selling, they bought a taco and everybody gave them the taco and they said, anything I should know about this? And they said, you might have a sore arm. Okay, nothing else. And you ate the taco and then dropped dead. Everybody in the restaurant saw. They're like, holy smokeronis, what happened there? And it was the taco. Maybe. It seems like it was the taco. It seems like from news reports that the taco directly had something to do with this. Would this be an exception? Could you keep Taco Bell open? Would that be all right? Everybody's cool with this? Everybody eating tacos? Everybody's fine with this? Is this the same taco that she ate? Don't give me what she's having, please. Right? No. Same tacos? Okay, same tacos. Open? It's open. Could you tell me anything about the person who dropped dead from eating your tacos here the other day? No, we don't talk about that. There's a privacy issue with that. And also, you're kind of racist. Is that okay, do you think? Would you eat at that Taco Bell? I don't know, man. I think that's pretty crazy, right? And they're saying, no. Everything's fine here. Don't worry about it. Yes, we're still booking shots. Don't talk about the person who died here from the taco. Not so good. Global freedom movement. That whole thing, absolutely bonkers. It's crazy. I don't know how the world has gone so round the bend bonkers. I don't. It's astounding, right? It's astounding. Holy smoke. Okay, global freedom movement. This is the last tab for today. It says quarantine officers are still being hired. Climate enforcement officers are still being hired. Quarantine camps continue to expand. mRNA manufacturing plants are still being built. Emergency powers ready to come back at the stroke of a pen. They're not panicking. They're preparing. Are you? I don't know how to prepare properly. I'm a failure at preparing properly. Not really. I mean, like to a degree, I think. I think that how could you possibly prepare for the wholesale implosion of your entire society? And you can prepare to survive for a season, but if you prepare, most people don't understand that after the first season, you have to then farm or find a sustainable way to get food. And there's going to be other people who are trying to get the same food that you're getting. So there's going to be a lot of competition. It's not necessarily the first 3 to 5 months, although the first 3 to 5 months are very difficult as well. But it's after that because you don't have, it's not like Little House on the Prairie, although it's probably much more difficult than that. And I don't want that. Like fundamentally, I don't want a full collapse of society. I don't want to prepare for anything like that. But this seems to be a World War II style mobilization where people are coordinated, and the people who aren't coordinated are going to be ushered in line, told what to do, where to go, because we're going to be reliant on the people who have a plan. And remember the Joker, what he says, it doesn't matter if the plan's awful, if the plan's terrible, right? So long as somebody's got a plan, well, this is where we get food. Okay, well, half of us are going to be the food. Have you seen Soylent Green? Yeah, but this is where we get the food. You're missing the really important point, right? Right. And so I feel like, and it's not necessarily exactly that, but I feel like it would be that clear. Like to one person, this is where we get the food. And to the other person, you are the food. We are the food. Potentially me are the food and not you. Like potentially you'll eat me, right? Like I might be on your plate. So, right. But my imaginary, person that I'm talking to here is solving his problem of he's hungry. And these people are the people who are giving out the food. And I'm looking at this saying, this is not a sustainable way to do this. We should maybe find another way. Do you have any potatoes? Right? I'm just spitballing here. It seems like we're solving problems in the most horrific. Oh, you don't have enough money for housing? Have you heard of MAID? And that's not a joke. That's what's going on. It's incredible. And if you're sick and you don't have enough money for housing, even more they're offering you MAID. And so how do you solve that problem? How do you even begin to solve that problem? Because the government says we're giving them what they want while offering a nonstop feed of you might feel if you're mentally ill, it's okay. It's okay to not have your best day. It's okay to be anxious. You might be anxious about these 9 things. Do you think you're anxious today? Like, welcome to the radio, right? Holy. And then all of the songs are like, my life's not good enough. My lover left me or whatever. This thing's happening that's terrible in my life. People aren't good, blah, blah, blah. All the music is just awful. It's not very hopeful. It just seems so part of a similar push to get people to view things through a lens that really doesn't exist unless you push that lens to exist. Make sure you're the master of your own experience, right? If a song's telling you that, oh, maybe this is wrong and that's wrong, turn off the song, turn off the radio station, listen to something else. All right, that's enough out of me. I've gotten a little off topic, but I just think that we are being pushed, being manipulated by Twitter, by governments, by big tech, and I think that the best way to push back, or the best way to maintain your own sanity, I suppose, is to disengage from that nonsense. If you see somebody posting, oh wow, this person's clear, the biggest problem here is white supremacy, maybe don't follow them anymore, because they're not telling you the truth. They're telling you lies. That's what they're telling you. And it's nothing but divisive, nothing but it's not helping solve a problem. It's creating more problems than it's solving. And that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable to me. So, all right, that's enough for me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out Speaking Moistly. Check out the kitchen table talk we did yesterday. It should be up on all my stuff. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.